Hey, Psych2Goers, have you ever been told that you're too quiet or that you need to come out of your shell? More often do people assume that because you prefer solitude, you must be stressed, anxious, or unhappy. Well, here's something that might surprise you. What if we told you that your introversion, the very trait that others sometimes see as a weakness, could actually be one of your greatest strengths, especially when it comes to managing stress? That's right, while the world often celebrates extroversion and pushes us to be more social, more outgoing, and more connected, your introverted nature might be protecting you in ways you never realized. So today, we're going to explore how introversion can be your shield against stress, and why embracing your quiet nature might be exactly what you need in this overwhelming world. Let's dive in. Number one, you naturally avoid overstimulation. Have you ever been to a party or a crowded event and felt completely drained afterward, like your energy was just sucked out of you? While extroverts often thrive in these environments, gaining energy from social interaction, introverts experience the opposite. They lose energy in overstimulating situations and need time alone to recharge. Now here's where your introversion becomes a shield against stress, because you're naturally inclined to avoid overstimulating environments. You're protecting yourself from one of the biggest sources of modern stress: constant sensory overload. Think about it. Extroverts might say yes to every social invitation, attend every networking event, and fill their calendars with back-to-back activities. While this might seem fun and exciting at first, it can lead to burnout, exhaustion, and chronic stress. You, on the other hand, have a built-in radar for when things are getting to be too much. You listen to your body and mind. When they tell you it's time to step back, you don't feel the same pressure to be everywhere and do everything, because you know that your energy is precious and needs to be conserved. This isn't antisocial or lazy. It's actually incredibly wise self-care in a world that constantly demands more from us. Your ability to recognize your limits and honor them is a powerful stress management tool. You're not running yourself into the ground trying to keep up with unrealistic social expectations. Instead, you're pacing yourself, choosing quality over quantity when it comes to social interactions, and protecting your mental health in the process. Research has shown that chronic overstimulation can lead to increased cortisol levels, the stress hormone that, when elevated for too long, can cause serious health problems, including anxiety, depression, weakened immune system, and even cardiovascular issues. By naturally gravitating toward quieter, less stimulating environments, you're keeping your cortisol levels in check and giving your nervous system the breaks it needs to function optimally. So the next time someone suggests you need to get out more or be more social, remember that your preference for calm, quiet environments isn't something to fix. It's your body's way of protecting you from stress. Number two, you have rich inner resources for coping. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to fall apart when they're alone, while you actually feel most centered and grounded in solitude? This is another way introversion shields you from stress. Introverts have what psychologists call rich inner lives. You're comfortable spending time with your own thoughts. You can entertain yourself. You don't need constant external stimulation to feel okay. And this is huge when it comes to stress management. Why? Because most effective stress reduction techniques require you to turn inward. Meditation, mindfulness, journaling, self-reflection, creative pursuits like writing or art. These are all activities that introverts naturally gravitate toward and excel at, while extroverts might need to work hard to sit still and be alone with their thoughts. You're already comfortable there. You've been practicing solitude your whole life, which means you have a head start when it comes to developing these crucial coping skills. Think about what happens when life gets really stressful. When you face a major challenge, loss, or crisis, extroverts often need to immediately reach out to others to process their feelings. And that's perfectly valid. But what happens when those people aren't available? Or when the crisis is so overwhelming that even your support system is struggling? Introverts have an advantage here, because you're used to processing things internally first. You can sit with difficult emotions, examine them from different angles, and work through problems. The quiet space of your own mind, you have what's called self-soothing abilities, the capacity to calm and comfort yourself without always needing external input. This doesn't mean you don't value relationships or support. It just means you're not completely dependent on them for your emotional regulation. You have internal resources to draw from: your imagination, your memories, your values, your creativity, your ability to find meaning and perspective through reflection. All of these are like having a well-stocked emergency kit for your mental health. When stress hits, you have tools readily available that don't require anyone else's presence or participation. You can go for a solitary walk and sort through your thoughts. You can journal about what you're feeling. You can lose yourself in a book or a creative project. You can meditate or simply sit quietly and breathe. These might sound simple, but they're incredibly powerful. And the fact that you're naturally inclined toward them means you're better equipped to handle stress. independently research supports this. Two studies have found that people who are comfortable with solitude and have strong interpersonal intelligence, the ability to understand yourself, tend to have lower rates of anxiety and depression. They're more resilient in the face of adversity. Because they're not thrown off balance when external circumstances change, they have a stable internal foundation to stand on. So your rich inner world, that place you retreat to when the outside world gets too loud, isn't escapism. It's your fortress. It's where you recharge, strategize, heal, and find the strength to face whatever challenges come your way. Number 3, you form deeper, more meaningful connections. Now you might be thinking, wait, I thought we were talking about how being alone protects me from stress. What do relationships have to do with it? Well, here's the thing, introverts might have fewer relationships than extroverts, but the relationships they do have tend to be much deeper and more meaningful. And when it comes to stress management, quality absolutely trumps quantity. Think about your friendships. If you're an introvert, you probably have a small circle, close friends rather than a large network of acquaintances. You invest deeply in a few relationships rather than spreading yourself thin across many. And this creates a powerful buffer against stress. Why? Because superficial relationships, the kind where you make small talk and keep things light, don't actually provide much stress relief. In fact, they can add to your stress. You have to maintain a social persona, remember details about people you don't know well, and invest energy without getting much emotional return. Deep, authentic relationships, on the other hand, are incredibly protective against stress. When you have even just one or two people who really know you, who you can be completely yourself around, who understand your introverted nature, and don't pressure you to be someone you're not, that's gold. These relationships provide what psychologists call secure attachment. You have a safe base to return to. When the world feels overwhelming, you don't have to pretend or perform. You can show up exactly as you are, tired, quiet, needing space, and be accepted. Introverts are also typically better listeners and more thoughtful communicators. Because you process internally before speaking, you tend to say more meaningful things. When you do speak, you ask deeper questions. You remember important details about people's lives. You create space for others to really be heard. And this creates reciprocity. The deep listening and authentic presence you offer to others, they offer back to you. Contrast this with the extroverted approach of having many friendships that might be fun and energizing, but less intimate when stress hits. Having 50 casual friends might not be as helpful as having 2 or 3 people who really get you, who you can call at 3 in the morning, who will sit with you in silence if that's what you need. Research on social support and stress consistently shows that it's not the number of social connections that matters most, it's the quality. People with strong, deep relationships have better mental health outcomes, lower stress levels, and even better physical health. They live longer, recover from illness faster, and have lower rates of depression and anxiety. Your introverted tendency to go deep rather than wide in relationships means you're building exactly the kind of social support that actually protects against stress. Plus, there's another benefit to having fewer but deeper relationships: less social drama, less maintenance, less obligation, fewer birthday parties to attend, fewer group chats to keep up with, fewer people to disappoint. You need alone time. You've curated a small circle of people who understand and respect your needs, and that in itself reduces a significant source of stress. So while the world might tell you that you need to network more, make more friends, be more social, your selective approach to relationships is actually serving you well. You're building quality connections that truly nourish you rather than collecting superficial ones that drain you. Number 4, you're more self-aware and emotionally intelligent. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Introverts tend to have higher levels of self-awareness than extroverts, and self-awareness is one of the most powerful tools you can have for managing stress. Think about it. When you're self-aware, you notice your stress signals early. You recognize when you're getting overwhelmed before you hit a breaking point. You understand your triggers. You know what situations, environments, or people tend to stress you out, and you can plan accordingly. Introverts develop this self-awareness because they spend so much time in reflection. You naturally analyze your experiences, your reactions, your patterns of behavior. You're constantly checking in with yourself. How am I feeling? What do I need? Why did I react that way? This ongoing internal dialogue creates a deep understanding of your own psychological landscape. Extroverts, who are more focused on external stimulation and interaction, might not develop this same level of self-awareness. They might push through stress signals, ignore their needs, or not even notice they're overwhelmed until they crash. Introverts are less likely to fall into this trap because they're tuned into their internal state. This self-awareness also leads to better emotional regulation. When you understand your emotions, where they come from, and what they're telling you, you're less likely to be overwhelmed by them. You can observe your stress response with some distance. Instead of being completely caught up in it, you might Notice I'm feeling really anxious right now. This is my body's stress response. It's uncomfortable. But it will pass. I can handle this. This kind of metacognition, thinking about your thinking, is a hallmark of introversion. And it's incredibly valuable for stress management. You're not just experiencing stress, you're observing yourself experiencing stress. And that observer perspective gives you power and choice. Moreover, introverts often have high emotional intelligence, particularly when it comes to understanding their own emotions and the emotions of others in one-on-one settings. This emotional intelligence helps you navigate stressful situations more skillfully. You can read between the lines. In conversations, you can sense when something's wrong, even if it's not being said directly. You can empathize deeply with others, which helps you maintain your important relationships, even during stressful times. You're also more likely to recognize when you need help because you're in touch with your internal state. When your usual coping strategies aren't enough, when you need to reach out to a friend or seek professional support. This prevents stress from building up to dangerous levels. Your self-awareness acts as an early warning system. Research has found that self-awareness is strongly correlated with psychological well-being. People who understand themselves, their values, their needs, their limits tend to be happier and less stressed than people who are disconnected from their inner experience. They make better decisions. Because they understand what truly matters to them, they set better boundaries. Because they know their limits, they choose environments and relationships that support their well-being rather than undermine it. So all those hours you spend in your head, analyzing, reflecting, processing, you're not overthinking or wasting time. You're developing one of the most valuable psychological skills. You're becoming an expert on yourself. And that expertise is your shield when stress comes knocking. You know yourself well enough to know what you need and how to take care of yourself. Number 5, you don't need constant validation from others. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it can be to constantly seek approval from other people? To need external validation to feel okay about yourself. This is another area where introversion protects you from stress. Introverts tend to have what's called an internal locus of control. They derive their sense of worth and validation from within rather than from external sources. This doesn't mean introverts don't care what anyone thinks or that they're immune to criticism. It just means they're not dependent on constant external validation to feel okay. Extroverts, who are more oriented toward the external world, often need more feedback from others to feel good about themselves. They might need regular reassurance, praise, recognition, and approval. And while there's nothing wrong with appreciating positive feedback, when you need it to feel worthwhile, you're setting yourself up for stress. Why? Because you can't control what other people think or say. You can control whether you'll get the recognition you deserve, whether people will understand your efforts, whether you'll receive the validation you're seeking. When your sense of self-worth depends on these external factors, you're essentially putting your emotional well-being in other people's hands. Introverts are less vulnerable to this because they've developed strong internal standards and values. You know what matters to you. You have your own criteria for success and worth. You can validate yourself. When you do something well, you can acknowledge it internally. You don't need someone else to tell you it was good to feel satisfied. This internal validation system is a powerful stress buffer. Imagine two people who both work really hard on a project. The extrovert presents it and waits anxiously for praise. If they get it, they feel great. If they don't, they feel crushed and stressed. The introvert also presents it, but their satisfaction comes primarily from knowing they did their best, from meeting their own standards. External praise is nice, but it's not necessary for them to feel okay about their work. Who do you think experiences less stress? The person whose emotional state depends on unpredictable external factors, or the person who has a stable internal source of validation? This doesn't mean introverts are arrogant or don't value feedback. It means they have a more stable sense of self that isn't constantly buffeted by others' opinions. This stability is incredibly protective against stress. You're not constantly anxious about what people think. You're not devastated by criticism because you have your own internal compass to guide you. You can consider feedback thoughtfully rather than desperately needing it or being crushed by it. Research on locus of control consistently shows that people with an internal locus, those who believe they have control over their lives and don't depend entirely on external factors, have lower stress levels, better mental health, and greater resilience. They're less likely to feel helpless in difficult situations because they believe in their own agency and capability. Your introversion has helped you develop this internal locus. You've learned to be comfortable with yourself, to trust your own judgment, to find satisfaction in your own accomplishments, regardless of whether anyone else notices. And this makes you less vulnerable to one of the biggest sources of modern stress, the constant need for external validation in our social media saturated world, where people are constantly seeking likes, comments, and followers to feel Worthy your ability to find validation within yourself is not just a shield against stress, it's a superpower. Number 6, you recharge through solitude, which is the ultimate stress reliever. Let's talk about one of the most fundamental ways introversion protects you from stress: your need for solitude. And the fact that alone time actually energizes you, rather than drains you. For introverts, solitude isn't just a preference, it's a necessity. It's how you recharge your batteries, process your experiences, and return to baseline after stimulation. And this built-in need for alone time means you're regularly engaging. One of the most effective stress management practices there is taking breaks from the demands of the social world. Think about what happens when you spend time alone. You can finally relax completely. You don't have to monitor your behavior or think about how you're coming across. You don't have to make conversation or respond to others' needs. You can just be. This complete relaxation allows your nervous system to downshift from the sympathetic fight or flight mode into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. This is where healing happens, where stress hormones decrease, where your body and mind repair themselves. Extroverts don't have the same built-in mechanism for regular nervous system downtime. They might go days or weeks without significant alone time, constantly in social mode, constantly stimulated. And while they might enjoy this and gain energy from it, their nervous system doesn't get the same opportunity to fully rest and reset. You, on the other hand, are naturally drawn to regular periods of solitude. You might take a quiet evening at home after a busy day. You might spend your weekend in low-key solo activities. You might take a walk alone, or sit quietly with a book, or simply do nothing. And these aren't wasted time or antisocial behavior, they're essential maintenance for your mental health. Moreover, the activities introverts typically enjoy during alone time: reading, reflecting, being in nature, creative pursuits, meditation. These are all proven stress reducers. You're not just avoiding stress by being alone, you're actively engaging in restorative practices. Reading reduces stress levels by up to 68%. According to research, time in nature lowers cortisol and blood pressure. Creative activities like writing or art provide emotional release and processing. Meditation and mindfulness, which introverts are naturally inclined toward, have countless proven benefits for stress and mental health. You're essentially giving yourself regular therapy sessions without even trying. It's just how you naturally want to spend time. Because you actually enjoy solitude, you're more likely to prioritize it. Even when life gets busy, extroverts might see alone time as something to avoid or endure. So when they're stressed and busy, they cut it out entirely in favor of social support or distraction. You're more likely to protect your alone time because you know how essential it is. This means you maintain your primary coping mechanism. Even during the most stressful periods, there's also something deeply stress relieving about not having. Beyond all the time, introverts often describe social interaction, even enjoyable social interaction, as requiring a certain performance. You have to be present, engaged, responsive, appropriate. And while you can do this and even enjoy it, it requires energy. When you're alone, you can drop that performance entirely. You can be completely unself-conscious. You don't have to worry about anything except what you need in that moment. This freedom from social performance is incredibly relaxing. Research on solitude has found that people who are comfortable being alone and who regularly spend time in solitude have better stress regulation, better emotional balance, and even stronger relationships. Because they're not depleting themselves, they have more to give when they do engage socially. So your need for alone time, that thing people might criticize you for or try to fix, is actually your secret weapon against stress. While others are burning out from constant social engagement, you're regularly hitting the reset button. You're giving yourself the gift of true rest and restoration, and that keeps your stress levels manageable even in challenging times. Number 7, you're naturally more selective about commitments. Have you ever felt pressured to say yes to things you didn't want to do just because you felt you should? Or because you didn't want to disappoint someone? Introverts certainly experience this pressure, but they're often better at saying no than extroverts. And this selectivity is another way introversion shields you from stress. Because introverts have limited social energy, they can't say yes to everything without completely depleting themselves. This natural limitation forces you to be more selective about your commitments. You have to prioritize, you have to choose what's truly important and what's not worth your energy. You have to set boundaries. And while this might feel difficult sometimes, it's actually protecting you from one of the biggest sources of modern stress: overcommitment. Think about how many people are stressed simply because they've taken on too much. They've said yes to too many things. They're on too many committees, attending too many events, helping too many people, and now they're overwhelmed, exhausted, and resentful. Extroverts might fall into this trap more easily because they have more social energy and they gain energy from many activities, so they keep adding more until suddenly they're drowning. You're less likely to end up in this situation Because you know your limits, you know that you can only handle so many social commitments before you'll need to recharge your more comfortable disappointing others or missing out, because you understand that protecting your energy is necessary, not selfish. This selectivity extends beyond social commitments to all areas of life. Introverts tend to be more thoughtful about the jobs they take, the projects they commit, to the causes they support. They don't just jump into things because of external pressure or FOMO, fear of missing out. They take time to consider whether something aligns with their values and whether they genuinely have the energy and interest to commit. This thoughtful approach prevents a lot of stress. You're not constantly overextended. You're not doing things you don't care about out of obligation. You're not spreading yourself so thin that nothing gets your full attention. Instead, you're choosing fewer commitments and giving them your full energy. This creates a sense of integrity and purpose rather than scattered overwhelm. Moreover, when you do commit to something, you're more likely to follow through in a meaningful way because you've chosen it carefully and you're not juggling 50 other things. This creates positive experiences and outcomes, which reinforces your sense of capability and reduces stress. Contrast this with someone who says yes to everything, does none of it particularly well, feels guilty and stressed about all of it, and keeps adding more in an attempt to prove themselves or keep everyone happy. That's a recipe for chronic stress and burnout. Your introversion protects you from this cycle. Research on decision making and well-being shows that people who are more selective about their commitments and who align their activities with their values energy levels report higher life satisfaction and lower stress. They feel more in control of their lives because they're making conscious choices rather than just reacting to demands and opportunities as they come. Your natural selectivity also means you're better at protecting your boundaries. You're more likely to recognize when something doesn't feel right and to trust that feeling. You're more comfortable with missing out on things that don't serve you. You understand that no is a complete sentence, and while you might still struggle with people pleasing like anyone else, your limited social energy gives you a built-in excuse that makes it easier to set boundaries. So the next time you feel bad about turning down an invitation or not volunteering for something, remember that your selectivity isn't selfishness, it's wisdom, it's self-preservation. It's you protecting yourself from the stress of overcommitment. And that's something to celebrate, not apologize for. So psyched to goers, did this video help you see your introversion in a new light? Can you recognize how your quiet, reflective nature has been protecting you from stress all along? We hope this has given you a fresh perspective on what it means to be introverted in a world that often seems designed for extroverts. Your introversion isn't something that needs to be fixed or overcome. It's a valuable trait that comes with its own strengths and protective factors, especially when it comes to managing stress. You naturally avoid overstimulation. You have rich inner resources for coping. You form deeper, more meaningful connections. You're self-aware and emotionally intelligent. You don't need constant external validation. You recharge through solitude, and you're selective about your commitments. All of these are powerful shields against the stress of modern life. So embrace your introverted nature, honor your need for quiet and solitude, trust your selective approach to relationships and commitments, and remember that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. The world needs introverts just as much as it needs extroverts. Your thoughtfulness, your depth, your ability to listen and reflect, these are gifts, and they're especially valuable in our fast-paced, overwhelming world. If you related to this video, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. How has your introversion helped you manage stress? What are your favorite ways to recharge and find peace? Share your story, because it might help another introvert who's struggling to accept themselves. And if you know an introvert who might benefit from this message, please share this video with them. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we're exactly who we're supposed to be. Thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, honor your introverted nature, and remember that your quiet strength is more powerful than you know. See you soon.